Welcome to the Tavern, World Builders! Today we are talking about the fantasy novella Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. Beware, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello.
And Christiana.
Hi.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, to start with a summary for anybody who has not read the book, which you absolutely should, in my opinion, it's fantastic, but
Yes.
To spoil it for you in case you have not read it, Mara is the youngest of three princesses. Her eldest sister, Damia, marries Prince Vorling, but dies several months later. Kania, the middle sister, then marries Vorling, and Mara is sent off to a convent to basically be kept in waiting in case the prince needs a third wife.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yes, yeah. When Kania's daughter, sorry, Kania or Kania? I think I said Kania the first time.
You said Kania the
I
first
said Kania.
time.
I'll stick with that. Kania's daughter dies, and at the funeral she tells Mara that Vorling is abusing her. Mara decides to leave the convent to save her sister. She seeks help from a dust wife who gives her three seemingly impossible tasks. Weave a cloak from nettles, make a dog from bones, and catch moonlight in a jar. After Mara completes the three impossible tasks, the Dust Witch agrees to help her kill Vorling. Along with a demon-possessed chicken, the pair journey to Vorling's kingdom. Along the way, they rescue a knight named Fenris from a goblin market, and they also recruit Agnes, Mara's fairy godmother. Agnes is a well-meaning godmother who is much better at giving curses than blessings. Agnes takes Mara to meet with Vorling's fairy godmother, and they find out that the godmother is bound to Vorling's family due to a curse from a long-dead king. Mara and her friends break the curse, allowing the old grandmother to die peacefully. Kania gives birth to a healthy baby boy, and at the christening, Agnes steps in to claim the role of godmother. She curses the baby to grow up fatherless, at which point Fenris kills Vorling. Kania becomes queen regent, Mara and Fenris fall in love and leave Kania's kingdom together. And then the old godmother and the Dust Witch also end up living together, but not in a romantic way. I don't think it's implied that it's a romantic way. It's a cute platonic.
I read it as
Did
romantic.
you read it? So maybe you can interpret it in different ways.
I read it as romantic. Yeah.
It's ambiguous.
So, first impressions. I think this is the first book, maybe all season, but definitely in a while, that all three of us have liked. So, yay!
I mean, Emma and I picked this, and we already loved it. So just Christiana had to love
Christiana
it.
was the wild card.
I was the wild card.
Yeah. And with that, we'll jump right into Happy Hour to talk about how we feel about the book.
I loved it. I'm obsessed with it.
Yes!
It's one of my new favorites.
This is one of my favorite books of all time.
Me too,
so
of
good.
all
So
time.
good.
It's in my top 10. I love it so much.
It's truly phenomenal. I think we're going to delve into the world building and talk about it more in depth shortly. So I think for the time being, I'm just going to quickly say the prose itself is it's so beautifully written. And it actually reminds me of Jeff Vandermeer, my favorite author, because T. Kingfisher also has this very dreamlike sort of description to what's happening. And even when there's good descriptions of what is happening, and there's some really visceral stuff, like when the dust wife raises up the drowned boy and the gurgling and the bloated body and things like that is very visceral. But the descriptions of the lands and when she's in especially the opening, kind of going through those cursed lands and what it feels like and how she's literally building a bone dog, which if you could see me right now, you would see the 400 bones I have right behind me right now. So I very much relate to that. But it's all kind of dreamlike, which fits into the larger sort of fairy tale narrative. Mm-hmm. But it feels ethereal and strange and beautiful in every single way. I absolutely adore the writing.
I noticed that in the first chapter.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't start the book at the beginning. She starts right in the middle. Mara is on her second task. She's not even on the first task. She's just right in the middle of building the dog.
And she's in this land of cannibals that never really gets explored again. It's just a foggy, dreamlike land where there's cannibals who are weirdly nice to her.
And the prose of the first chapter, it's a little bit confusing, which does remind me of Jeff Vandermeer as well.
Yeah.
You're not quite sure what's happening or what Mara is doing or who she is. And I really liked that.
Yes.
I found it drew me in much more than starting at the beginning with introducing her would have.
And it really introduces the genre of it, like the dark fairy tale, because it's very fairy tale. Like, it's that very, like, dream-like, you don't know exactly what's going on, so, like, you really get into the genre. And then it goes back a little bit and goes through more of those, like, here's what's happening sort of things, but you really get a sense of the tone that you would have missed if she had just started it with, you know, a more, like, dry cut, here's how this happened, and then this happened.
Will say, I feel like there was a prologue that was maybe cut from this. Because there's a few times, especially in the beginning of the book, where she mentions Mordecai, like the hero of a story. And like, oh, did he have to do this? Did he have to go through this? And then it's kind of not brought up again.
Oh, I just felt like that was world building, background detail.
I liked it, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have had this super quick, short, and I'm the kind of person who will very rarely say you need a prologue. A quick little, the tale of Mordecai. And then going right into this dreamlike world.
Sorry.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I was just kind of like, who's this Mordecai guy? He's going to come into play.
You just wanted to know more. And then he didn't,
which is fine. Yeah.
You need a Mordecai spinoff is what you need.
That's what I need.
So I grew up on fairy tales. My dad would tell them to me even before I could read. And so I love fairy tales. And I love how this book is not a retelling.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a fairy tale. And we're going to go into that in the world building.
Yes. So actually, let's jump right over there, because I think we really just want to get into it. And we've already said how much we love it. So let's hop on over to Tavern Talk. So we are going to be discussing how this novel fits into its genre, which is dark fairy tale.
Yes.
And how the world building accomplishes that. So, Allison, do you want to talk to us about some of the tropes of a dark fairy tale?
I do. I so do. So I originally wanted to think about this as dark fantasy and a fairy tale, but then I was going back to our notes on The Witcher, which you can listen to our episode on dark fantasy and The Witcher from this season. And we discussed a bunch of those tropes, like dark magic, a merciless world, gray morality, horror elements, anti-heroes. Like, none of that fits this. I'm going to say that dark fairy tale is a completely different genre from dark fantasy. That's my conclusion.
Personally, I think it's lowercase d, dark fairy tale, because there are twists on it, and it is a little darker than, you know, the prince and the princess find the glass slipper and they're married happily ever after. But it's not gritty.
It's not grim.
It feels pretty cozy.
Yeah.
But it's definitely darker. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this would even be, because I think a lot of times when people say dark fantasy, they mean grim dark fantasy, which I think is its own, like,
thing,
genre.
Yeah.
So I think that this is, like, I would say that this is probably, like, dark, because it does have, like, some disturbing, like, descriptions of stuff, like you were talking about, like the drowned, bloated, like it's talking about, like, you know, bloated corpses,
the abuse of the princess.
The abuse,
is like a central plot element. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you're right. It's not like grimdark, because the world is like a pretty average world. It's not like everybody's living these horrible, terrible lives.
Yeah,
and
it's
that kind of stuff.
Even less about the world. The plot is kind of grim. It does center around abuse, that her sister is being abused
cozy.
And she wants to save her.
Mean.
But but it's also like really cozy.
People are kind to it. There's kindness, which I think is what's missing from grimdark often, is like grimdark is like it's unrelenting, and here it's like, no, there's people who are kind and the world isn't just out to get you.
I would say it's niceness. Like more kind than it is grim.
Yeah.
There's moments of dark, and there's moments, and there are
kind
twists
dark instead of a grim dark
on the fairy tale, but it's like, overall, it's kind of feel good. It's a pretty feel good book. Yeah.
So speaking of the word grimdark, the website TV Tropes used the word grimdark, but GRIMM dark, to talk about non-Disneyfied fairy tales, and I now love that term. But of course, it's very confusing and doesn't make sense, because that's an actual term.
In an audio format, it's very difficult.
But I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's go into some tropes of fairy tales and how this book manages to feel like a fairy tale, even though it's not a retelling of any specific fairy tale. So the first one is, of course, the fairy godmother or the magical helper. At first, I thought the dust wife was the fairy godmother stand-in, but she is not. There are actual fairy godmothers. She's more of like the old witch crone character, which is also a character in fairy tales.
Yeah.
And then you have the actual fairy godmothers which I loved the play on that they could both bless and curse.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that. I liked that a lot.
And the fact that Agnes is better at curses than blessings.
She's like the
so
sweetest
delightful.
lady, but she's like, I can't do blessings. I can only do curses.
Well, she can do this one blessing that is good health, and so that's all she does for babies.
Yeah.
Which, personally, as someone with chronic illness, I would love a blessing of good health. So, But Mara's a little miffed at her when they first meet, because she's like, why didn't you give us something better that would have protected us from this prince's abuse? And I really liked that scene.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have impossible tasks is a very common fairy tale trope. Yeah. And I really also really liked how Kingfisher turned that on its head a little, in that the Dust Wife gives these tasks to Mara,
not to prove herself, but to get her to go away.
Yeah, she's like, I don't want you to do this. You're not supposed to complete these. Why are you completing them? She's like annoyed.
Mara does it anyway. And then it was very funny that the third task Mara doesn't really even have to do.
Yes. I loved that.
Is just like, here's moonlight in a bottle.
Give it back.
I don't want you to actually do this, because it will break you if you try to get this. Yeah, that was great.
I also like that the impossible tasks were very early on in the story. You could have taken those 3 impossible tasks and made an entire novel out of just those 3 impossible tasks.
Totally.
But instead it was very much like the setup, which I think is kind of flipped on its head when it comes to fairy tales, as normally you have the setup, and then the majority of the tale is, doing the impossible tasks.
I really liked the structure of the novel overall.
It was really good.
It sort of starts in the middle of the story, and then you get a bunch of flashbacks where backstory is filled in, and then you get present and past story told at the same time.
Which also feels, I think, very fairy tale. Because I think one of the hallmarks of like a fairy tale is like the awareness that you're being told a story. Like it's less immersive sometimes, because it's like you're being told this story. This is a once upon a time, even though it doesn't start with once upon a time. And so like having that sort of going back and forth sounds like the way someone would like tell you a story of like, oh, here I was, and then let me tell you about this backstory, and then now we've got
how I got there, and then
so it like really, I think, makes not only the contents of the story feel fairy tale like, but also just like the shape of the story feels very fairy tale like.
That's more a structure of maybe oral storytelling as opposed to fairy tales you might read on the page. But
well, I think historically, like originally fairy tales were all like,
there's a lot of oral tradition with it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then you have magical items is very common in fairy tales, and we have several of those in this story. You have like the Dust Wife breaks out the moonlight in the bottle at some point later on, and the bone dog is I guess not an item, but a creature of magic. You have both a moth and a chicken that like show them where to go, that like lead them to what they need. Both chickens! I love
There's also a demon chicken.
The demon chicken.
They're amazing.
The Dust Wife have a chicken that she keeps saying, like, there's a demon in it, like, and at some point she's like, oh, you mean literally it's not just a bad chicken? And she's like, no, of course not. It's
an
I also
demon
keep waiting for the demon chicken to like do something crazy, and it doesn't really. It's just kind of a long ride.
Okay. Yeah. I love that, because my spouse's nickname for me is Chicken. Like, that's his pet name for me, to the extent of which he has a tattoo on his arm of like a chicken with a heart.
Aww.
Like, that's me. I'm Chicken. And I also collect bones, and I feel like I am
You
the
are
demon
the Dust
chicken.
Wife.
No, I'm not even the Dust Wife.
chicken.
I'm the demon chicken.
Does that make
100%.
your spouse the Dust Wife?
Yeah, I think it would be. I think he would be down for that. I just like ride along. And it's the description of the demon chicken just sitting on the top of her staff.
Yeah.
As like, normally you imagine like Gandalf, like this gnarled root at the top or a glowing orb or something, and it's just like a demonic chicken. I love that so much.
So good. Another trope of fairy tales, which I'm fascinated by, is magical numbers. So in fairy tales, you will often get, in particular, 3 and 7 are big ones. So 3 is often used as a method of comparison, often from one child to the other, usually older two, which is exactly what we have in this story. Mara is the youngest, and she has 2 older siblings. And Mara is different in that she doesn't feel like she belongs in a royal setting. She thinks politics are stupid and boring and doesn't like them. And I think she prefers being a nun.
Yes,
which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So I was looking up some reasons why 3 is like a magical number. And so some things I found were that it can only be divided by itself, which is sort of like this unbreakable number. Yeah. It's a number of power, particularly in Christianity, like the Holy Trinity is 3. It's the smallest number that indicates a pattern. So like 1 time is lucky, twice is coincidence, but if it's 3 times, that's a pattern now. Yeah. So you have 3s all over in fairy tales. So Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, the 3 Little Pigs, 3 Billy Goats Gruff, 3 Wishes. The Little Mermaid had 3 days to make the prince fall in love with her. Rumpelstiltskin spins straw into gold 3 times. It's just everywhere.
Yeah. It's also even, I think, because it's like that first thing where it becomes a pattern, it's even a thing in comedy writing, for example, right?
Yes.
Like the rule of 3s in comedy where you say, oh, I love to go for long walks on the beach, romantic poems, and I don't know, driving my car off a bridge. Like the third thing is supposed to be like the funny unexpected, like you're expecting this pattern and then you reverse it. So you do see the 3 a lot in writing, even in non-fantasy settings for sure.
I think there's something about odd numbers in general. I forget exactly, but like our brains react to odd numbered things differently than even numbered things, which is very
Yeah, so I was looking for 3s in this story, and the main ones are Mara is the youngest of 3, and the 3 tasks.
Yeah. She also gets 3 human companions.
3
yeah, like she gets the dog as well, but like there's 3 human companions.
They actually make a note of talking about how there's 5 of them.
Yes, including the chicken and the dog, because they make a... Fenris, the guy that they say from the Goblin.
We make a hand.
Like, we make a hand.
Yeah, he's like, we make a fist. We're strong.
Yeah.
So I like that mention of numbers, even though 5 isn't particularly common in fairy tales. Just the obsession with numbers is. So I like that reference. And then 7 is another common one, just like it's perfect or complete. That number appears in the Bible a lot, and there's 7 wonders in the world, and days of the week, and colors in the rainbow, and Snow White's 7 dwarves, and families with 7 children are common in fairy tales. I didn't see that too much in this story.
No, I don't think there was any 7s in this one.
But I was just really fascinated by fairy tales and numbers, so I wrote it down anyway.
Yeah.
And then sometimes 4 and 9 are in fairy tales, but not really in this one. So
yeah. But yeah, definitely like repeating numbers and stuff is definitely patterns. Like a fairy tale thing.
Yeah. Then this one is a fairy tale trope that I don't like, is that pretty or handsome characters are good and ugly characters are bad.
Yes.
And this book turns that on its head in that Mara, I believe, describes herself as plain looking. I think.
Does she?
I don't think she...
I
thought I remembered.
But I will say there's a couple...
I think she describes herself as being, like, short and strong, I think, at one point. Like,
yes,
so yes,
versus
I don't think she
her older sister
says...
who's, like, tall and pale and thin and beautiful, and she's not that.
Oh, yeah, it's a very funny line. She's like, I never managed to be thin and consumptive. I was short and stocky. And she's talking about if she could be a ghost. She's like, ghosts aren't short and stocky. Nobody ever talks about, like, a... Yes,
so I like that, but there is the scene with Vorling, the prince, soon to be kind of king, where she's, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. She doesn't describe him as like he's hideous and he has warts all over his face or anything like that, but she's like, he loomed so large in my mind that when I first actually saw him in person, and he's just like,
he's just a guy.
Actually not that tall and kind of skinny and has an angular face.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting, where I was like, I don't know if that's supposed to be like, men are supposed to be big and tall and beefy like my Fenris.
Oh, I didn't take it that way.
I thought it was like, so I was like on the fence because I saw that, and then she later described Fenris, and I was like, is Is that commentary? I don't think it is. I think it was more a commentary of her. She pictured this big bad guy.
Yeah, it's like she thought he was a monster, and he was, and it turned out he was just like a normal man.
He's actually just like, I think, maybe a little shorter than average, and
I think, a little older than she expected,
and a little older, and like
the family is cursed, and so they age faster, and she didn't know that.
Yeah, but there doesn't. In this one, there doesn't really seem to be that same like stereotypical like, oh, the witch has like a wart and like, you know, like. And
you don't want to see that in a newly published book anyway.
No, you don't.
That's not a good comparison. I did love how like sexy Fenris is described as, and how even the older women.
Oh yeah, Agnes is like so excited when he takes his shirt off.
And they're all like, when he goes to like work in the quarry to see if they can find a way into the catacombs. And then they're like, maybe you should take your shirt off to prove, show your muscles, show everyone that you're strong. And they're all disappointed when he comes back with his shirt on. And they're all like,
but then he has to cool himself off. He has to pour water on his head.
And they're like,
that's almost
as
good. It's just very funny.
Which is like
characters.
A little scummy if you were to reverse the roles, but I think that's something.
Context is important.
But context is important, and I also think that sometimes when people are like, "Oh, but if you reverse the roles," I'm like, "Yeah, then you'd go from punching up to punching down."
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I think in this instance, it's a little funny because it's like normally in fairy tales, it's like, and then I saw the most beautiful maiden in the world washing her hair in the creek, kind of thing, and it's just like some annoyed
hunky guy,
hunky guy trying to wash off at the well. That's kind of funny.
So good. Yeah. Another trope is a wished for child by a childless couple. Probably the most famous example is Sleeping Beauty? I think it's Sleeping Beauty where the wife can't have the child, and then eventually she puts like a rose under her pillow or something. Anyway,
also Rapunzel. I think Rapunzel is one too, where it's like they couldn't have a kid. And
that sounds right too. Yeah.
There's a few. Yeah, it's a thing.
It's common. There's a lot of them. And I really liked how T. Kingfisher does something new with that. Here's this couple that can't have a child.
Are you talking about Kania and
the prince?
Yeah.
And is being abused and beaten because of it instead of like...
Well, and also she tries to keep herself pregnant because he doesn't hurt her as badly when she's pregnant, so that she doesn't lose the baby.
That's where the grim in this...
That's where the grim part of this story comes from, is like just how abusive the prince is, which you don't get to see firsthand. So it's not like...
Yes, which also makes it
You don't get gruesome scenes of it, but you know it's happening.
Yeah, and also I think a little bit too with Mara's... like, that's never going to be me. I'm never going to get pregnant. And kind of early on in the book, she works with the sister and the apothecary to be like, how can I prevent this ever happening to me?
Yeah, to learn
because like that feels like a curse.
To try and stop that. Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that's often not addressed in fairy tales. That does take it to the unfortunately grim reality we're living in, where that is being pregnant can be a very dangerous situation for
and then it's also grim because you also know once she has a boy, the prince isn't going to have a use for her anymore and will kill her. So you're like, okay, this is all terrible.
But also then, if she can't have kids, he'll also kill her to get a wife who can't have kids. So it's like, the whole, reason for the plot is that they're very much trapped in this situation. And the whole reason that the daughters keep getting married off to them is because they come from this very small kingdom that's in a very precarious position, and they need the power of the northern kingdom to essentially keep them safe. And they know that if they piss off this prince, he'll just come in and kill everybody in their kingdom. So it's also like they're trapped because if they want to save their people, the princesses become the sacrifices essentially to like appease this awful guy.
And it's ties into the next trope, Allie.
Evil stepmother / queen / witch.
Yeah.
So the mom trading them off for marriage, knowing that the prince is abusive.
It's interesting though because she's a morally gray character because she's doing it to save her entire people of her kingdom. But it's still a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call her evil, but
not good.
not great.
Yeah. And then you also have the evil kind of like godmothers who can do curses, but they're on the good side. Yeah, they're not evils.
Even the godmother of the prince's family is trapped in this horrible situation.
Because she keeps giving them, the gift that she keeps giving them is that magic won't affect them as long as she lives. So they need to, like, they go to her to try and figure out if they can kill the prince, but then they find out that she was actually cursed by a king a long time ago, who essentially, like, bound her to this bloodline, so she's immortal, but she, like, survives off of the life of the monarch, which is why they all age
wants
faster.
to die.
Yes, and she wants to die.
Lived for a long, long time.
Yeah, so it's like a whole series of curses on curses that is, like, trapping everybody.
The scene that killed me, like, that discussion, having a grandma who's getting up in age and not doing fantastic. The line where it's like, oh, she's at peace now. And, oh, like, I think she's been at peace with it for a while, but I'm still allowed to cry. I was like, oh, like, I just started bawling. I was like, oh my God. That got me way too close.
Yeah.
It's really good storytelling, though.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Helpful animals, and on the reverse side, trickster animals are also really common.
Yeah.
We definitely had helpful animals. You got the chicken.
Well, and
we got the chickens.
The demon chicken is sort of a wild card.
Yeah.
And then you also even have the group talks about common animals in fairy tales. They mention a fox.
Oh, yes.
Something else. Second
animal.
Yeah,
the scene where they actively talk about fairy tales was kind of funny because it was the dust wife who brought it up, right? And he was like, oh, and she was like, if you come across a fox, I'll be concerned because then that means we're in a fairy tale. And that doesn't tend to pan out well for old ladies. And I was like, oh my God.
And then Heather starts calling her Mrs. Fox.
Lady Fox.
Lady Fox. Yeah.
For the rest of the story, which is wonderful. So there's like a reference to a fox, even though there isn't an actual fox.
Yeah.
Trickster foxes are common in fairy tales. Helpful animals.
Yeah, bone dog.
Definitely have bone dog.
Best dog.
He's
best
adorable.
dog ever.
Sweetie.
I love the references to how dogs don't care about human rules.
Yeah, the dog doesn't know he's dead, and therefore
and so
he's just going to run around.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Love at first sight is another one. You don't really get that here.
I was going to say, I kind of, like, the moment... So they get the moth in the goblin market, and it lands on Fenris, and they're like, oh, you need him.
They don't
and
know
she
why.
looks at him. We don't know why, but you need him. And I was like, well, it would make sense in a fairy tale if they eventually kind of romance each other.
Yeah.
But it's not like I looked at him and I stopped in my tracks and the angels sang and the skies opened up, or like it was nothing like that.
I think the romance is really cute. It takes time to grow.
Yeah.
I think it's also not even outright a romance. Like, they don't say I love you. They don't admit their feelings for each other at any point.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very, very tame kind of romance.
It's very much the beginning of a
heavily
romance.
implied.
It's like yes. You know that they kind of, continue afterwards, but it's very, like, sweet.
And the line, like, what if we, like, I can't go back to my home. I can't go back to my home. What if we don't go home together?
That's so
cute. So cute.
I was like, oh my God.
It's
Be
just
still
so
my beating heart.
It's the Dust Wife or Agnes, I can't remember which one, who, like, talks about it with Mara.
Agnes,
like,
Agnes is like, Fenris.
Obviously, Fenris. And Mara's like, nah, I don't think he likes me like that. And Agnes is like, are you sure?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's fair. And they kind of do the only one bed trope. They only have one blanket, and Fenris is, like, cold, so she, like, offers to share the blanket. It's, like, very cute.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Then you have stories about the youngest of the family, or the youngest being the best one. Obviously, Mara is the youngest, so the story's about her, so that's very fairy tale.
Yep.
Marriage to royalty as a happy ending is very common.
This flips that on its head.
Yeah.
Where Mara does not want to be royal at all.
No. And their marriages to royalty are what is literally causing all of the problems.
Yeah, she started as royalty. Usually it's like, I was a peasant and then I married a prince and now everything's great. This is like, I'm a princess and I hate it.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
The rags to riches.
Let's run away.
Cinderella is common.
Riches to rags.
Yeah, the backwards. which is wonderful.
And I really liked the because I do think that there's almost like a reverse trope of like the princess who doesn't want to be a princess, and sometimes that can lean too much into the like not like other girls trope, where it's like I don't like being a princess because I have to wear a dress, and girls who wear dresses are stupid.
I want to use
and it's
a sword and punch people.
And this one wasn't that. It was like it was not that she didn't like girls, or femininity, which is often how that's skewed. It's just like she doesn't like always being observed and not being able to like control her own destiny, and like she has thoughts about like how a nun can be more free than a princess because she's allowed to like close the door to her room and like there aren't people coming in and out and like servants all around and everything. So it's like a little bit less. It's not problematic in the way that sometimes the princess who doesn't want to be a princess story
at the end of the story, Mara's sister, who's now queen of this kingdom, talks to her about, well, if you stick around, Mom's gonna marry you off to some random
for the good of
prince.
the kingdom.
So maybe you should just leave if you don't want that. Mara's like, yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah, but Kania is shown as being a really good and competent queen. So it's not even like all royalty is evil. It's like, no, she's good at it. This can be a good path. It's just not for her. Sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think also like the like physical plot. I'd like to think things of like the physical and the personal plot. The physical plot is she wants to save her sister from an abusive prince. And that's what ends up happening. I think the kind of character plot or the personal plot that happens in it is that she doesn't want to be a pawn to her royal family anymore. And through that quest to release her sister from abuse, she finds a way to not be a pawn anymore. Like that's the plot kind of going on in her head, whether she realizes or not. She's working her way towards a greater freedom sort of thing. So
totally agree.
And then my final note on fairy tales is that magic is normal and it often goes unexplained. So you just have things like Mara bringing the bone dog to life. Is never explained how she does that, or is she a mage or a wizard, or why does it work? Because this was supposed to be an impossible task.
Yeah.
And I love that it's not explained.
I do too.
And then that's commonly repeated throughout the novel. There's just like fairy godmothers can bless and curse people. It's not really explained how that works. It's just a thing.
Yeah, and like
there's
ghosts,
some
and,
like
that's not really
hints
explained, and like
that Agnes gets her powers from her mother being fae.
Yeah.
Yes,
so like
that is explained.
Maybe all the godmothers or godparents are half fae or something like that. But it never goes into it like, and then my mother taught me how to, and blah, 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 blah.
And
like,
it doesn't explain, like, why the Dust Witch has different powers.
Yeah, under the light
or...
of the full moon, I can do, it's just like, there's magic. It's a fairy tale, accept it. And I like that.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel jarring. Like, I don't feel like, oh, I needed to understand that in order to, like the story. So it's like, you buy into it because that's the premise.
You could certainly explain magic and rules, but then it wouldn't feel like a fairy tale anymore.
Then it'd be a different
it would be a different genre. So it's not like
I think that's actually a bang-on observation.
Yeah.
Is that fairy tales, when you're reading a fairy tale, it's like, before you even start the story, knowing it's a fairy tale, you're just kind of buying in. Like, you have the buy-in from the audience to be like, it's a fairy tale.
There's
anything
magic.
goes to some extent.
A lot of magic is unexplained and weird and can sort of just do whatever. Like, it's never explained how the moonlight gets in the bottle or what the moonlight can do.
Or why it would break you to collect it. Which I love. Speaking of, like, spin-off novels, I'd love a novella spin-off about the Dust Wife. Like, I want to know about the Dust Wife's
the Dust Wife was
like
A+ character. So funny, so good.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. Like, I think that's like a good explanation for why we talk about genre, because we do also talk about genre as like primarily being a marketing thing, but it is also helpful because it lets you know what you can do, like not what you can do, but like things that your audience will expect and how to make that work for you and work for your story. It makes things easier for you, right? So that's
it's also fun to know what your audience expects and then turn some of those expectations on their heads, like surprise them in some ways.
Yeah, like George R.R. Martin's stories completely flip like high fantasy on its head, and like that's one of the reasons that people are so crazy for them, among others. Like, but that's one of the.
And
things
I mean, even in this story, you have Kingfisher doing some of that, turning some of these tropes around, using some of them normally, like the stories about the youngest daughter, fairy tale. Yeah. And then turning some of the things around.
Also just trusting her audience, right?
Yes.
Like, it's a fairy tale. They don't feel the need to, like, over-explain every single thing that's happening in the story. It's just knowing the audience is going in expecting a fairy tale that takes some of the load off of you to some extent, where you can then focus on, okay, what do I want to flip and make different? So,
yeah.
I'm sure there are other books like this, but I mostly read fairy tales that are retellings, like novels, as opposed. So I don't know. I just loved this so much that it was not a retelling.
It's
still
like
obviously
a unique
fairy tale.
One.
Yeah.
With that, I think let's head over to Proprietor's Pick. Allison, what do you have for us?
I've got a book from 2021 called All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slatter. Here's what it's about. Long ago, Myron O'Malley's family prospered due to a deal struck with the mayor. Safety for their ships in return for a child of each generation. But for many years, the family have been unable to keep their side of the bargain and have fallen into decline. Myron's grandmother is determined to restore their glory, even at the price of Myron's freedom. A spellbinding tale of dark family secrets, magic and witches, and creatures of myth and the sea, of strong women and the men who seek to control them.
I think this is like the best fitting Proprietor's Pick you've done. Like, oh my goodness, there's bones in the title. There's literally like someone being sold off into marriage. It's about women and men seeking to control them.
It seems more to be a merfolk type mythology.
Like, if this story was set in a sea setting, what would it be like? That
sounds
great.
really cool.
Yeah.
I kind of want to read this now.
Ever since I've read this book, I've wanted to find ones that are similar. So I'm very excited to read this one, which sounds very similar.
I also have so many T. Kingfisher books on my TBR now because I'm like, I really like
all
her.
of her books are incredible.
So I'm going to read more.
Her writing especially, like just the prose, like it's good. Like
it's really
beautiful.
good.
Yeah.
Stunning.
I just read A Sorceress Comes to Call, which is her book that she released this year.
I haven't read that one yet.
Or this year as of recording, 2024. It was really good, and I was surprised I liked it because it was very slow. Like... cozy, slow, but
look, Allison likes cozy books.
I was never bored. You guys.
I thought if I had just seen the plot points for this book, I would have been like, that's not up my alley. Nothing happens. But I was like glued the whole time. I tore through it. It's so good. Yeah.
So I will put all the Murmuring Bones on our bookshop.org page, and I might throw A Sorceress Comes to Call in there too. So if you want either of those, or a Nettle and Bone, which we all three of us highly recommend.
So highly.
You can buy those on our bookshop.org page and support us and an indie bookstore.
Yay! And that brings us to last call. Here are our concluding thoughts and questions of things that we think you can take from Nettle and Bone and apply to your own world building. Allison, what do you have for us?
My advice is pretty simple. I think you can just look at Nettle and Bone as a masterclass for how to write a story that feels like a fairy tale but isn't a retelling. And so to do that, I think all you have to do is pick several fairy tale elements and throw them into your novel. So, have your story be the youngest sibling. Have there be fairy godmothers, have a helpful animal or a trickster fox, just throw some of those elements in there and then pick some to turn on their heads like Kingfisher does to make it interesting. I think the magic is unexplained and normal is just such a big fairy tale element that if you put that in there, it's for sure going to feel fairy tale-ish. So maybe that one for sure. And then sort of pick and choose some of the other elements. It's really fun to read fairy tales for inspiration as well. So I recommend reading like Grimm's fairy tales and Hans Christian Andersen are really big. But then it's also nice to look at fairy tales that are from maybe cultures that are less known in North America. So you can read like Indian fairy tales or like Irish fairy tales or go into like Japanese fairy tales. You'll find inspiration there. Like don't steal everything from another culture, but it's interesting to compare how those fairy tales are different from the British ones that we're more familiar with, the Disneyfied versions.
Yeah.
And then of course actual fairy tales are also very different from the Disneyfied version, so it's fun to compare those two.
Totally.
But yeah, that's my advice.
My advice kind of is similar to the last part of yours, talking about the magic, which is really use your magic system to work for what genre and what story you want to tell. So like a soft magic system, which is a system that doesn't have a lot of the rules explained. It's a little bit more vague. It's more mysterious. That feels very magical. Like that is a fairy, like as Allison said, like that is fairy tale to a T. That's, you know, Lord of the Rings magic system is like that. Harry Potter's magic system to a sense is like that. Blue turfs. But like there's a lot of soft magic stories, and those feel more magical. Whereas if you go with a hard magic system, which is one where a lot of the rules are explained, and you know exactly how the magic works, Brandon Sanderson is like one of the classic examples of that. It doesn't feel as magical, but it feels more realistic. And neither of those is better than the other. They're just different ways of writing. Yeah. And I think that knowing that will help you to figure out what sort of magic system you want your world to have based on, do you want it to feel more magical or do you want it to feel more realistic? And I think that those are both great things to think about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Christiana, what can we take from Nettle and Bone and apply to our world building?
So I think I would classify this as a cozy book. And I think some people would disagree with that. But
it does feel cozy.
I'm someone
not on this podcast. None of us are disagreeing.
I am someone who apparently, famously, doesn't like cozy in my stories. And this, to me, struck the balance of, when you think of it as cozy, fairy tales are kind of cozy, where it's not world-ending stakes. It wasn't, I need to save my sister because if I don't, the king will take over and destroy the entire land. The stakes were, she's my sister and I care about her and I want to save her from an abusive situation. And I want to remove myself from a bad situation. So it's not like world-ending stakes. And it's still a little grim, but it's still very fairy tale and still quite cozy. So I guess my world-building question I would ask is, yes, cozy is often determined based off of the plot, but there are things in the world building that made it feel cozy. Like having the dog, like having the demon chicken, like being able, there's godmothers who curse people, but actually they're just friendly people and they want to help you out. There are world building things that you can apply to your story that also help it make it cozy without it being like, and we run a cafe together and just make lattes and nothing happens. You can still have stakes, you can still have kingdoms, you can still have kingdoms at war. There's a lot more to cozy than just the plot, and I think this is a really good example of world building that feels really comfortable.
Yeah, it's interesting how fairy tales feel cozy, even when you go back to those original versions where quite horrific stuff happens in them.
I think it's because you know there's going to be a happy ending.
In the original Little Mermaid, the mermaid dies.
Horrific. Dies.
Yeah.
And the prince does not want to be with her.
In a very graphic way.
I would call that one cozy, though. Like, I don't know.
I don't
think that's cozy anymore.
I'm saying more that fairy tales in general feel cozy, but there are
I was going to say, there are definitely very not cozy fairy tales. But I think when you say fairy tale, colloquially, people think like, oh, happy, cozy. And then they all lived happily ever after. And I just think world building can play a part in that.
Yeah. I do think a happily ever after, or at least a good ending, I think is important for a cozy genre. Like, I think it'd be very tough to have, like, a sad or, like, bad ending for your characters and have it feel cozy.
Died while killing the prince to help her sister.
Yeah,
and then,
I don't know if I would...
that would have been... I don't know if I would have felt
it for
very cozy.
Yeah.
Or if Mara died at the end, you know?
Yeah.
I would have felt more cozy with Mara dying than
Oh, really?
Yeah, to be honest.
That's funny.
Because then she's like, I did what I needed to do. I met someone that I care about. I learned how to trust again. I saved my sister, and now I'm dying peacefully. Like, that's okay. But instead of being like, I saved my sister, but this guy that I'm kind of obsessed with, he died. Like, that would suck.
Also, shout out to the fact that, like, all of these characters are, like, over the age of 30, which is, like, very...
Yes, I love that.
Can be rare in fantasy, and it's, like, it's just nice to have that sometimes. Like, Mara talks about being, like, in her 30s. Fenris is, like, in his 30s or early 40s.
I think he's 40,
I think
he's 40, almost 40.
Okay, yeah.
And the Agnes and the Dustwife are
both
old
like,
women.
They both talk about being like 70. Yeah.
I love old protagonists and old characters. I'm so happy.
Yeah. I think which is also like very Actually, no, that's actually not very fairy tale. Fairy tale is always about, like, you know, the, like, 18-year-old.
16?
Or even, like,
Usually
16 or 14.
like,
yeah.
So, clearly, we could keep talking about this for forever, but for the sake of not having a podcast that is 4 hours long, we are going to stop here, and this brings us to closing time. We would love to stay longer, but these chicken eggs, which may or may not be from a demon chicken, are not going to collect themselves. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern today. If hands-on world building is something that appeals to you, along with these more sort of theoretical discussions, then you should absolutely check out our world building workshops. These are bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session, available for patrons at our $5 and up tiers at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. This month's episode, which is already up and ready for listening, is on building a school, which was a fun one.
We built a magical community college, and it was very fun.
It's like a magical trade school. It's so much fun. Yes, you should absolutely listen to that one. You can also check our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza, and you can find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books we talk about on the podcast, supporting both us and an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye!
I hope you all live happily ever after.
Now say it, Christiana!
These fairies aren't going to tell themselves.
I meant get out of here, but that works also. Yeah, I meant get out.
I was like, say what? Get out of here.